What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and we are officially now 3 days out until one of the biggest games in the history of college football, and also the most and very important game as well throughout the history of college football as well. And that, of course, that most important game is the national championship. It is time now for my official game preview and prediction here for the 2024 College Football Playoff National Championship game between the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. So we're going to give you my official prediction for this national championship game here between the Huskies and the Wolverines. We're going to take a look at stats for both of these teams, kind of compare their stats together throughout the 2023-24 season. And we'll take a look at the game summary for this championship game and see what time the game will be, and of course who the favorite in this championship game will be as well. And then we'll take a look at both teams' previous 5 game results, from the 2023-24 season, and also kind of compare those as well. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you my official prediction here for this championship, and I'm going to also predict how I think the game is going to go down. So let's get right into it here with my official prediction for the College Football Playoff 2024 College Football Playoff National Championship game here, again between the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. Let's start with stats here for both of these teams. We'll start with the Washington Huskies. They come into this championship game with a record of 14-0. So they're undefeated. They have not lost a game all season long. This team, you look at their average of points per game, they're averaging about 37.6 points per game. This is a very explosive Washington offense by the total yard numbers. You look at how much total yards they're averaging here on the offensive side of the football, averaging about 473.6 yards of total offense this year. This is a very explosive offense, like I just mentioned, in that 400-yard category. This is a really explosive Washington offense, and like I said, they can score points on the offensive side of the football. You look at the passing yards for the Huskies, averaging about 350 yards of passing. Michael Penix, obviously one of the top quarterbacks in the country, even though he did not win the Heisman Trophy this year. He was a Heisman finalist at least, but also a Heisman runner-up. He's got about 4,648 yards of passing this year, 35 touchdown passes, and then about 9 interceptions. So he's had a really phenomenal season, and also a very ridiculous season as well, just putting up ridiculous numbers on the passing yards this season. And then you look at the rushing yards for Washington. This is a team that's pretty average at running the football. They're not the most explosive running game. This is more like a passing team and everything that Washington does on the offensive side of the football. This team averaging 123.6 yards of rushing, though, on the ground. Dillon Johnson is one of their top running backs in the backfield with 222 carries total on the season, 1,162 yards on the ground, and then 16 rushing touchdowns. So Dillon Johnson has been able to really have a really good season for this Washington team, and he has really emerged here in the postseason. And then offensively and defensively here in the rankings for the Huskies, they're 10th on offense, no surprise here. I mean, obviously they're a top 10 offense in the country. And then defensively, they're not the most talented defense. You could tell by that ranking number and everything. They're 97th, on defense and everything. This Washington defense can be good at times, and then sometimes, they're not really decent. But I think they're just overall a pretty decent defense. I don't think they're the worst defense in the country. This is just a pretty average defense that Washington has on the defensive side of the football. And like I said, they're not the most talented defense. They're 97th in that ranking. But, this is a Washington defense that can be really good at times, and then sometimes they can really be bad. But these are the stats here for the Washington Huskies. Looking at the Michigan Wolverines, they come into this championship with a record of 14-0 as well. This team averaging about 36 points per game. And you can see the total yards per game here for this Michigan team, averaging about 378.4 yards of total yards this year on the offensive side of the football. This is not the most explosive Michigan offense. You look at, you kind of compare them to the previous 2 years. They were very explosive on that offensive side of the football, but this is still a Michigan offense that can score points, on the offensive side of the football. They can really make explosive plays as well. You look at the passing yards for Michigan, averaging about 218.9 yards per passing. Looking at J.J. McCarthy's numbers on the season, 2,851 yards of throwing, 22 touchdown passes, and then about 4 interceptions. So he's been taking care of the football pretty well this year. And again, J.J. McCarthy might not be the top quarterback in the country, but sometimes he can really do some damage when he throws the football down the field as well. Then you look at the running game for Michigan, averaging about 159.5 yards of rushing. This is their strength on the offensive side of the football, is running the football. Obviously, they got Blake Corum, one of the top running backs in the history of college football, in the backfield. He's got 237 carries on the season, 1,111 yards of rushing, and about 25 rushing touchdowns. So he's been having a really dominant season like he did last year before he got hurt. But then offensively and defensively here in the rankings for Michigan, again, this is not the most talented offense. Like I mentioned with Washington, they're not the most talented defense, but there are times, where they're good sometimes on the defense, and then there are times where they're bad. Same thing with Michigan. There are times where they're kind of inconsistent on the offensive side of the football, but then there are times where they can be really, really good on the offense. But mostly it's the running game that, Michigan is really explosive on the offensive side of the football. They're kind of not like, a passing attack team. They're kind of like more of a running type team and everything. That kind of goes the same thing with Washington. This is more of like a passing attack team as well. So offensively in the rankings here, Michigan is 72nd. And then, of course, defensively, they're the first on defense here in the rankings. They're obviously one of the top defenses in the country. So both of these teams ranked, differently here in the top 10 on both sides of the football. Offensively, Washington ranked 10th on offense, and then defensively for Michigan, they're first. So these are the stats here for both of these teams heading into this national championship game. Let's now get into the game summary here for this national championship. This game will be at 7:30 Eastern Time, of course, on Monday night, January the 8th. It will be on ESPN, of course, in Houston, Texas. And you look at the spread. The spread's going to favor Michigan in this national championship here by 4.5 points. And the over and under for this championship is about 55.5. You look at both of these teams, obviously two undefeated teams, 14-0, and two of the top two teams in the playoff, in those final 14 playoff standings. Michigan number 1, Washington number 2. It's the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten. I think this is like the first official time that Michigan, or actually, a Big Ten and Pac-12 team have met in a championship game, probably since the first ever college football playoff. Oregon and Ohio State met in that 2015 national championship. I think that's the last time that we got, instead of an SEC team taking on a Big Ten team, this is the first time that a Pac-12 versus Big Ten team has taken place in the national championship, probably since that time, in 2015 and everything. Looking at the storylines going into this game, Washington, again, is an underdog in this game by 4.5 points. They've been underdog in the last two games in the postseason. They were an underdog in the game against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. They were a 9.5-point underdog in that game, which was very surprising to me. And then, of course, they were a 4.5-point underdog against Texas. So Washington has been called the underdog all season long. Maybe this is their year that they can finally win a national championship and also, end things out in the Pac-12 with a huge, statement and everything before heading to the Big Ten next year. But again, Washington comes in at undefeated at 14-0, and the same thing here for Michigan. They're coming in at 14-0. Obviously, a 7-point win in overtime against Alabama this past Monday night. I was very impressed with Michigan's defense in that game, even though, they didn't score a lot of points in that game. But, Michigan did make some mistakes in that game. They, the special team problems kind of, played out for Michigan in that game, but they were still able to come away with the win over Alabama. So both of these teams, Michigan wasn't an underdog in their game, but, Washington was an underdog. So both of these teams, I was picking them both to be underdogs in their games when I did some predictions on both the playoff semifinals. I did pick, Alabama and Texas, obviously, to win the semifinals, but both Michigan and Washington, these are two teams that just continue to prove everyone wrong, and especially Washington, they just continue to prove everyone wrong when they're the underdog in some of these games. And once again, they're an underdog in this game by 4.5 points, so the spread is not that high, but, they're just once again an underdog in this game. Looking at the FPI favors Michigan as well. Michigan given about a 74% chance to win the championship here by the FPI, and then for Washington, it's only about 25% for them. So yeah, the FBI favors Michigan in this game by a lot. I mean, I kind of am surprised that the, margin of percentage there for Michigan is very high and not very high for Washington. And again, Washington is the underdog, so they have continued to just prove people wrong when they're the underdog in a lot of these postseason games and also in a lot of these big games as well. So again, this championship game is at 7:30 Eastern Time, again at the Battle of Unbeatens here. And again, Michigan favored here by 4.5 points, and the over and under is at 55.5. So that's a look at the game summary here for this championship. Let's now get into the previous 5 game results for both of these teams. Like I said, both of these teams come in undefeated. Let's start with Washington. Take a look at their previous 5-game results. They come in 14-0, obviously. They defeated Utah back on November 11th, 35-28 in a pretty close game there. They defeated Oregon State on the road 22-20 in a pretty close game there back on November 18th. Obviously, both offenses couldn't get going in that game, obviously, because of the rain. They defeated rival Washington State in the Apple Cup 24-21 by a game-winning field goal on rivalry week, a rivalry weekend of college football on November 25th. Then they defeated Oregon in the Pac-12 Championship 34-31 back on December the 2nd. And then they defeated Texas this past Monday night, January the 1st, 37-31 in that playoff semifinal matchup. So again, Washington, they've always been the underdog now in the last 2 postseason games. And now it's going to be 3 straight games where they're the underdog. Like I said, you look at that Oregon game, they were a 9-point underdog in that game. And then, of course, Texas, they were a 4.5-point underdog. So the last 2 postseason games, Washington has proved people wrong based on these previous game results. And then, of course, you look at Michigan, obviously coming in undefeated as well at 14-0. You look at their previous game results, they defeated Penn State on the road 24-15 in a close one there on November 11th. They defeated Maryland also on the road November 18th and also a pretty close game, 31-24. Then in rival week, they defeated rival Ohio State here 30-24 on November 25th. And then they also go into postseason play. They defeated Iowa in the Big Ten Championship 26-0 in a shutout. And then this past Monday night, they defeated Alabama 27-20 in overtime. That was a really good finish to that game against Alabama. So you look at Michigan, obviously, those 3 games that you're seeing from the regular season, those are the games where Jim Harbaugh was suspended in, but they were still able to come away with wins in those 3 games. And then obviously in the postseason, they dominated Iowa pretty much on the defensive side of the football in that game. And then, of course, Alabama was a really good finish to the Rose Bowl. So these are the previous game results here for both of these teams. And I meant to change the date of that Pac-12 championship. That game was actually on December the 1st. So I meant to change that. But, they defeated Oregon and Texas here, both on December the 1st and January the 1st. So these are the previous game results here for both of these teams. Let's now get to my official prediction here for the 2024 National Championship. So again, it's Washington versus Michigan, the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten, number 2 versus number 1. Obviously, both of these teams proved a lot of people wrong in their semifinal matchups. A lot of people were picking Texas and Alabama because the confidence of both of those teams and everything, and also the talent on both sides of the football for both of those teams as well. But I think this is going to be a pretty good game here. Obviously, you look at the differences between these 2 teams. Obviously, Washington has a really good offensive team. They're pretty explosive on that side of the football. Michigan, though, a very good defense, obviously one of the top defenses in the country. I think this championship game is going to be more entertaining than it was last year. It could be a dogfight as well, because last year's championship game was obviously not very entertaining to watch. I think we're going to get a very entertaining championship game here in this one. How I think the game's going to go down, obviously, I think, both teams are pretty much going to struggle on offense in this game. I think this will be the toughest defense that Washington goes up to this point. They haven't really gone up against like a really good defense in a while, and it's kind of been like that, for Washington this season. They haven't just gone up at really good defenses this year throughout the season, but you look at Michigan, they haven't really been the best on the offensive side of the football. Like I said, I think first half both teams are going to struggle on offense, and I think the second half, I think both teams will probably start to get going, and then both defenses are just going to probably, going to have to come up with like huge stops and everything. I think a turnover can probably change the game in this one, but based off of what I've seen this year for both of these teams, Michigan obviously has had a very emotional season with all the suspensions of Jim Harbaugh. And then look at Washington, the last 2 postseason games, now heading into this 3rd postseason game, they've been the underdog, and they've had that underdog mentality in the last 2 games of this postseason, in the Pac-12 championship, and then of course in the playoff semifinal matchup against Texas. They have been the underdog in both of their postseason games, and now for the 3rd consecutive postseason game, they're obviously an underdog again. So with that underdog mentality, I feel like that's going to really play well for Washington. I feel like when Washington gets into these big-time games, they're obviously going to prove people wrong, and I think they're going to prove people wrong in this game as well. I'm going with Washington here in the national championship. I'm taking Washington as my pick here in the national title game, and I think it's going to be a close one here between these 2 teams. It might come down to a turnover. It might come down to a game-winning field goal perhaps for the championship. But I'm going to say that Washington wins it here by a field goal by a final score of 30-27. 27. So that is my official national championship prediction here. And again, I think Washington is the national championship here. I don't really feel confident with this prediction, but like I said, Washington has really succeeded as an underdog this year, and once again for the third straight postseason game, they are an underdog, and again, there are an underdog in this game once again. So I think, the spread is obviously going with Michigan just because they're the more talented team. But let's be honest, Washington, like I said, has that underdog mentality to win a postseason game, and they have shown that now in the last 2 games. And with that being said, that is just really leaning me towards Washington in this game. So that is my official prediction here for the 2024 College Football Playoff National Championship game here, again between Washington and Michigan. Again, Washington's my pick here in this game by a final score of 30-27. And also the last time that we'll see the 4-team playoff bracket. We have the 12-team playoff coming next year, obviously. But this is my official prediction for the national championship. Again, my final score in this one is Washington 30, Michigan 27. Let me guys know what you think about this official prediction, and also give me your official national championship game prediction, and also give me your final score prediction for this championship game as well down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks for watching this game preview and prediction video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.